In this endgame, Vincent Keymer played the move rook h7. It is round 10 of the FIDE Grand Swiss, and both Keymer and his opponent Bluebaum are leading. With a win, qualification for the candidates tournament would almost be guaranteed. Sadly, his latest move was a huge blunder, and his former winning position is now equal. His opponent is visibly shocked and cannot believe this unhoped opportunity. He checks over and over again to avoid miscalculations. It is the most important moment of his career. Finally, he sacrifices his knight. But what has Keymer overseen? Let's take a closer look into the endgame between these two German grandmasters. Keymer played the move rook to h7 to attack the pawn on h5. Bluebaum decided to take on g3, protecting the pawn on h5. But if white takes on g3, black can give a check and attack the king on g3 as well as the knight on c3. Now, if the white king retreats, then black of course is going to take the knight on c3 and white takes the pawn on h5. He's still a pawn up, but he has some weak pawns on the f and h file, and these are not going to be enough to be winning for white. And in this position, black is going to achieve a draw. The rook prevents white from proceeding with his king, so the king has to stay on the first or second row. And most important is that black's king will actually defend the white pawn on the h file. So if something like h5, king is going to go to g5 and we trade pawns, and now the f pawn is not strong enough to actually win. White's king cannot go on the third row, and therefore white has no chance of winning this endgame. For example, f4, king to g4, and now king to f5 in the next move, and black is going to win the f4 pawn quite fast. Well, after the move knight takes g3, Keymer decided not to take on g3 immediately, but played the check rook to h6. King f7 followed, and now knight to b1 attacking both the rook on d2 as well as the knight on g3. Therefore, black played the move rook to b2, attacking the knight on b1, and now takes and taking on h5. But this position is quite similar to the line we looked in earlier. Rook to b3 giving a check, and now going to b4. And white is attacking the e5 pawn, but black can take h4 afterwards. So this would not be a good option for white because of the reasons we have mentioned earlier, that the f2 pawn is not strong enough to win for white. Therefore, in this position, white played the move f3, king f6, king g3, protecting the h4 pawn. But now there was no chance for white to proceed and get further advantage, and therefore both players agreed on a draw. Well, now we can ask ourselves what should have been done by Keymer earlier on instead of playing the move rook to h7. Well, it's the move knight to e4, and after something like rook e2, a short check, king e7, and something like knight to f6, attacking the pawn on h5 with the knight. Now black has to go to g7 with his knight to protect the pawn, and now knight to d5, king to d7, knight to c3, and attacking the rook on e2, as well as trying to make a skewer on the knight on g7. Now black can play something like rook c2, rook to b7, and after trading both knights, after rook g5, white is going to win the pawn on h5 and having a winning position afterwards. But this is still a kind of hard line to see. Nevertheless, Keymer is one of the best players in the world, and rook h7 was a crucial mistake that shouldn't have happened. And therefore you can say that this move, rook to h7, has been the move that cost him the candidates tournament. For more information about chess news, subscribe.